When you think of Apple, you think of, well, perfection, right? The iPhone, the Mac, they just work. For decades, they've been the gold standard. So when they finally announced Apple Intelligence, their big answer to the AI revolution, everyone expected another game changer. But what we got instead? Well, it's a story of bitter infighting, totally fake demos, and a really, really rare public failure for Apple. So let's get into it and break down what on earth went wrong.
And look, this isn't just some tech blogger getting upset. What you're seeing here, this is from an actual class action lawsuit filed against the company. And it cuts right to the chase, doesn't it? It says Apple basically created this expectation for these amazing new features and then delivered, well, a significantly limited or entirely absent version. Ouch. We're not just talking about a product delay here. This lawsuit is claiming a public promise was straight up broken.
And that's because at the end of the day, the hard reality is, it's mostly vaporware. Yeah, for all the slick presentations and the big promises, a whole year after the big announcement, Apple Intelligence is still pretty much a ghost. It's a bunch of features that were supposed to be on your phone, but for the most part, they just aren't. So how did they even get to a point where they were faking it on stage?
Okay, so how did they pull off that illusion on stage? Well, it turns out those super impressive demos we all watched, they were basically staged. You remember that one, right? The one where Siri just flawlessly pulls your flight info from an email, checks your messages for dinner plans, and then maps out the whole route? Yep, that never actually worked. Apparently, the only part that was real was the little pulsing rainbow ribbon on the screen. It was so bad, the story goes, that even Apple's own head of software, Craig Federighi, was shocked by how little the pre-release software could actually do. Just wow.
And this whole thing is just so shocking because it goes against everything we know about Apple. I mean, they have this legendary playbook for entering new markets, a strategy that pretty much never fails. So what happened? How did that winning formula backfire so spectacularly when it came to AI?
So here's the classic Apple playbook. It's simple, really. Step 1, wait and watch. They don't want to be the first to invent something. They let everyone else make the early, clumsy mistakes. Then step 2, polish and perfect. They swoop in late with a product that's so user-friendly and beautiful, it just feels better. And that leads to step 3, redefine the whole category. Think about it. The iPhone wasn't the first smartphone. The Apple Watch wasn't the first smartwatch. But they were the first ones that felt like they just worked, you know? That's their magic formula. But this time, with AI, that formula completely fell apart.
And the results of that breakdown? It's pretty stark. You've got Apple over here with a bunch of features stamped coming soon, and then you have their rivals, Google and Samsung, who are shipping real AI features that you can use right now. Like Google's Gemini can have a live conversation with you about what you're pointing your camera at. Samsung can translate a phone call for you in real time. These are things that exist today. Meanwhile, Apple showed up late to the party, empty-handed, and kind of embarrassingly had to ask to borrow ChatGPT's tools just to get by.
So to really get how they ended up so far behind, we've got to peel back the curtain. We have to look past the slick keynotes. Because the story of Apple's big AI failure, it's actually the long, really troubled story of Siri.
So what really went wrong behind the scenes? How do you spend years and years working on something, only to end up with this? It wasn't just a bug in the code. This was a human problem, a people problem.
Well, for one thing, Siri's leadership has been a total revolving door for more than a decade. You had one guy take over, he clashes with the original team, then he gets fired after the whole Apple Maps fiasco. Remember that? They bring in a guy from Amazon, but he can't get the team on the same page, and it just fractures. Engineers start leaving. Finally, in 2018, they make this huge, splashy hire. They poach John Janin-Doraya. Everyone calls him JG, from Google. He was supposed to be the guy, the one to finally fix it all. Except he wasn't.
In fact, instead of fixing things, JG's arrival actually made the whole situation worse. Get this, Apple ended up with 2 separate AI teams basically at war with each other. You had Craig Federighi's group, and then you had JG's group, and they fought over everything: resources, who got to be in charge, even the marketing. It got so bad that Federighi's engineers had a nickname for JG's whole division. They called it Aimless. I mean, come on, you can't build a future when you're fighting a civil war inside your own company.
And all that internal chaos, it led directly to a catastrophic outcome. Because while Apple was busy bickering behind closed doors, the entire world of technology was changing forever, and they were about to completely, totally miss the boat.
So when ChatGPT just exploded onto the scene, right, kicking off this whole generative AI revolution we're living in now, Apple's leadership, especially JG, just didn't get it. He reportedly insisted that these huge new language models had, and I quote, limited utility. I mean, can you imagine? It was a generational miscalculation, a complete and total failure to see the future when it was staring them right in the face.
And that lack of vision from the top, it had very real consequences. Just look at this number. 50%. In 2023, right as the AI race was hitting a fever pitch, Apple's own CFO cut the AI team's chip budget in half, and then told them to do more with less. It's like trying to fight a war while your own side is taking away your ammunition. The fallout from that decision was, you guessed it, devastating. We're talking about Apple's data centers running on computer chips, GPUs, that were over 5 years old. That's ancient in the AI world. It got so bad their teams literally had to go hat in hand and beg for computing power from their biggest rivals, Google and Amazon. Just imagine that. Morale inside the team? Yeah, it completely cracked.
So you add all that up, years of neglect, infighting, underfunding, and it leads us right to the crisis we see today. The failure of Apple Intelligence wasn't just a missed deadline. It became a full-blown crisis of confidence for the entire company.
And then the dam finally broke. In early 2025, there was a huge shakeup. Tim Cook reportedly lost all confidence in JG and stripped him of his control over Siri. It was a massive public signal that the strategy had failed, that something had to change, and it had to change now.
But maybe the problem is even deeper than any one person. Maybe it's about Apple's entire culture. Think about it. Apple's whole identity is built on secrecy, simplicity, and total control. They build things behind a giant wall, perfect them, and then have this big, dramatic reveal. But that's the complete opposite of how modern AI gets built. AI development is messy. It's open. It's iterative. You have to experiment out in the open. And Apple, well, they just aren't wired that way.
So that leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? Apple is now on a mad dash to catch up. They're promising a totally revamped Siri, a huge software overhaul, the works. But is this just a temporary stumble? You know, a rare misstep from an otherwise great company? Or is it a sign of something bigger? A sign that the very playbook that made Apple the most valuable company on earth just doesn't work anymore in the age of AI? That's the question they're facing. And honestly, it's the question we're all left to wonder about.